Okay, I'm excited about this too. Dr. Andy Feinstein is president of UNC. He came in 2018 and he has done so much in the short amount of time he's been here. It's incredible. And he brought with him today Dr. Beth Longenecker, and she is the newest dean, I believe, on campus. She is the dean of the new College of Osteopathic Medicine. Okay, so we're going to get updated on UNC. Andy, thanks.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and Jean, thank you very much for inviting me and for both of us to be here presenting and talking about our Osteopathic Medical College. But I thought what I would do before I talk about the Osteopathic Medical College is give you a little bit of update what's happening at UNC, and things are going great. Believe it or not, we're on the tail end of the spring semester. How did time fly so quickly? Lots of energy on campus, lots of events. It's nice to be back in person after 2.5 years of not being back in person or masked up. It's just nice to see so many students around campus and going to events. The last couple of days I've had receptions at my home. Last night I had the Student Senate at my home, which was a lot of fun. And then the night before I had international students there as well. And I've had all of our diversity, equity, inclusion staff members and our cultural centers at my house last week. So just having celebrations and events at home makes me feel like things are back to normal. Had some good developments with our recruitment and retention efforts. We've had the highest retention of students, undergraduate students we've had in the history of UNC at 75%, which is very promising for the future of the university. We also saw the highest numbers of students that moved from basically applying to the university, coming to the university, and we saw significant gains in our first-time undergraduate students from Weld County. So those are all great things, great items to celebrate. But also, we did receive about a 5% decline in the undergraduate first-time, full-time enrollment. And that's concerning to us. And we're not alone in undergraduate enrollment nationally. You may not know this, but since 2020, there are 1.3 million fewer students going to college. And there's about a 9% decline in college-going students in Colorado. And I've had discussions about this, what's occurring. You know, some of it through the pandemic is a lot of people chose to go to work instead of go to college. And that significantly impacted particular groups of students, particularly first-time, first-generation students, underrepresented minority, and Pell-eligible students. And if you know, UNC, we're about 42% of our students are first in their family to go to college. So those are items that we're concerned about. The other thing that is concerning is way back in 2008, if you recall, in the Great Recession, we had a lot fewer babies being born. And that's coming home now to less students going to college. It's certainly being impactful on the East Coast, but we're seeing that transition also on the West Coast as well. So some work to be done there and some concerns for us. And some other good news, for the first time in the history of the university, we're up over 25% of Hispanic Latinx students at UNC. And we're applying for HSI, or the Hispanic Serving Institution designation, which is a federal designation. And we should know sometime in the spring. And that opens us up to support for federal grants, not only just for Hispanic Latinx students, but for all of our students. So we're very excited about the possibility of becoming a Hispanic Serving Institution in the spring. But what I really came here to talk about is our Osteopathic Medical College. And I'm sure, how many have heard about our plans? Oh, well, then I'm done here. No? Okay. Well, let me tell you a little story about that. And when I arrived in 2018, I was speaking to Kay Norton, my predecessor. And what presidents do I learned this, when they transition presidencies is like all executives, right? They have their desk with piles of paperwork on it. And they say, congratulations, you are now in charge of all these piles of paperwork. And one of those piles was work the university was doing on thinking about an osteopathic medical college. And so Kay and I had a nice conversation about that. And, what she told me was that a group of investors had approached her. They were a for-profit organization, and we're talking about the possibility of co-locating a medical school over where Bishop Blair is. Bishop Blair, our training high school used to be. And so I thanked her for all the information she provided, and I met with this organization and realized pretty early on in my tenure that I wasn't going to pursue a for-profit organization that was basically co-locating on our campus, and we were going to be we're going to charge them for services rendered. And I put it on the back burner for about 3 years. And it wasn't until about a year and a half ago, when, if you folks know Margot Karsten over at Banner Medical Group, she approached me and said, Andy, listen, I've got a lot of doctors that went to UNC undergraduate, maybe in biology or chemistry, and they're really interested in us reconsidering building a medical college. And we have a significant need for new doctors and actually allied health nurses as well. Would you be interested in pursuing that? And I thought that was interesting. Now the hospitals are coming to us and asking us to build this medical college. Around the same time, the Richardson family, many of you know Arlo Richardson and the 3 brothers that are very involved in the business. Arlo approached me and said, Andy, we'd like to help you reconsider building this medical college. We think it's a good thing to do. It's not only good for business, it's also good for our community from a health perspective, and it's good for the university. And they financially supported us. They gave us, a little over $6 million of funding for us to start doing some feasibility work. So we set off about a year and a half ago, doing a feasibility study, an economic impact study, and realized pretty quickly that there was an opportunity to build a medical college here. What I learned in that feasibility study is that besides some of the challenges financially of building a medical college, there were some legal hurdles. We actually had to change law in Colorado. There was a Senate bill basically providing exclusive authority to teach medical education to Anschutz Medical School in the University of Colorado. There's actually a law in Colorado that makes the exclusive authority of veterinary medicine at Colorado State University. So I thought, well, that's not fair. We got to change that. So we worked for several months. Many of you know Senator Sonnenberg. He was came over to my house for dinner, and I talked about him. And if you know Senator Sonnenberg, by the next day I had a bill drafted on in my inbox, and I thought, wow, that's pretty quick. But he was so excited about this project that we got this moving forward. It passed unanimously to the House and the Senate. Lots of support. I met with the governor. Interesting conversation. This happened about a year ago, and the governor said, Andy, I'm very supportive of this project. I support this entirely. And I like to jokingly say that I said, well, is that emotional support? Or do you have some financial assistance that you can help us with? And so I actually proposed and requested about $80 million for a new facility from him and the governor's office. And his team is working on support. I don't know what that's going to be. It's probably going to be after the election. Hopefully we'll hear something from the governor's office very soon, but we're excited about what the state's going to do to provide some assistance in building our facilities. And we were off to the races. We hired last year, after a national search, we hired Beth Longenecker. She's going to come up in a moment and speak to us. Beth comes from Ohio University, where she was dean of one of their medical colleges in Athens, Georgia, Ohio, excuse me. I say Athens, Georgia. It's Ohio, excuse me, Beth. And we're just very fortunate to have her, and she's been here for 5 months now. Been meeting with the entire healthcare community in Colorado, working on building a budget, a hiring plan, and also moving forward in our accreditation process. Right now, we're in applicant status, and we're pursuing the next phase, which is pre-accreditation status. And we've got some work to do, and we're hoping to get into that phase sometime late spring. And then the COCA, which is the Commission on Osteopathic College Accreditation, they meet in August. And if that were all to go perfectly well, we would actually have our first cohort, which they call a white coat ceremony, by fall of 25. Now, there is a possibility that we don't make that fall 25 cohort begin date. We would start them the following year in the fall of 26. There's a lot of work to do. It's a $150 million project. About $80 million or so of that is in the actual facility, a brand new osteopathic medical college. We're looking at the Bishop Blair space. We've hired a planning committee that's actually just recently shared with us some preliminary space utilization and even some designs of where it may sit on that location. There's about 16 acres of land over there. Very exciting. There's still some work to do there. We'll probably have our final report sometime mid to late January. So there's that work is ongoing as other projects as well. So I think with that, Beth, I'm going to bring you up and you can share a little bit more about the Osteopathic Medical College, but we'll have some time for a little introduction and discussion, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. How much time do we have, by the way?
We're actually doing pretty good, so you got plenty of time.
Okay, great. Beth.
Thank you, Andy. Just to give you a little background, because I know I haven't met all of you very well. I was hired into this position. I have 20 years of experience in medical education. I was a residency program director in emergency medicine for 12 of those, and I've been working as either an associate dean or campus dean in osteopathic medical schools in the remaining 8 to 10. Why are we looking at actually the need, and why do we need a medical school here, and why did this pass unanimously through the state government? If you look at the current state of medicine in the country, we are facing a significant doctor shortage. The AAMC, which is the Association of Medical Colleges, predicts that we are going to need approximately 140,000 physicians. We will have a shortage of 140,000 physicians by 2033. If you look at the Colorado issues, it's even more pronounced. This state has a high rate of growth compared to the rest of the states in the country, and we already are underserved in physicians. We meet less than 40% of our physician needs in the state. When you look at primary care, which is actually a major factor in wellness, and actually it's considered a social determinant of health, your ability to access a primary care provider, it's even lower. We don't meet our primary care need. We need to increase our workforce by at least 49% by 2030 to stay even with where we are now, and we're already at a deficit. Part of that is, if you look at our physicians in the state, about a third of them are over the age 60. They're going to retire, our practicing physicians. So all of this is compounded too by rural medicine. There is not enough physicians in rural capacities serving in our rural communities. And I know that CU Anschutz is working towards meeting that need, but they're not going to be able to do it alone. And having Anschutz and Rocky Vista, which is the other osteopathic school, which is a for-profit university in southern, just south of Denver and Aurora, they're not going to be able to meet the need that we have without additional resourcing and additional schools. So this is the perfect time to open a new medical school. Why osteopathic medicine? Well, if you think about osteopathic medicine, more than 50% of all DOs graduating go into primary care. We are a field that really is focused on primary care. If you look at the latest US News and World Report, 8 out of the top 10 schools for primary care are DO. One of the other top 10 is Anschutz, but 8 out of 10 are osteopathic medicine. And what about osteopathic medicine really draws people into that primary care field? A lot of that is the philosophy. And I don't know if all of you know about osteopathic medicine. Not everyone does. You get a doctor, you see MD, DO, you don't really think much about it. Osteopathic medicine actually started in 1874. The founder was A.T. Still, who was an MD. And this was a time in medical history where the only treatments we really had were like purging and bleeding and leaching and not really effective treatments. And a lot of people were questioning, what are we doing? And this is where we started to see things like naturopathy started, homeopathy started, and osteopathic medicine started. And A.T. Still started to think, what can we do better? And he has 4 tenets. One is that every human is made up of 3 components, mind, body, and spirit. And that unit, anything that impacts any one of those 3 compounds can impact health. That the body, the structure of the body and the function of the body are reciprocally interrelated. So if you have something wrong with your functionality, it can be reflected in structure. If something's wrong, say you have a short leg, something else is going on functionally, you're missing a rib, you have a fracture, it impacts your function. The other is that the human body has the ability to heal, and the doctor's role is to help that happen. So he's, based on all of those tenets, created osteopathic medicine, opened the first school in 1874 in Kirksville, Missouri. What's really amazing and forward thinking of him is he had 5 female students in his first class, and he had 3 African-American students in his second. This was just post-Civil War. So if you look at osteopathic medicine today, we have grown. We are the most rapidly growing medical profession in the US. 25% of all medical students currently in the country are going to be osteopathic physicians. Compared to my dad's day, where there were 6 osteopathic colleges in the entire country, this has been a huge growth. If you look at all of the physicians practicing in rural communities with town populations under 6,000, 16% of all current practicing physicians in that state are DOs. So this is why this is a really good fit for the needs in Colorado. Also, if you look at where we're seeing our students and surveying our osteopathic medical students, over 1/3 say they would like to practice in either a rural or underserved environment. So we're really creating the doctors that we need to fulfill this shortage. UNC is really uniquely poised as well to help with this because of our location and because of our student population. As Andy was saying, 41% first-gen students, many of them from rural backgrounds, 25% Latinx students. If you look at the practicing field right now and inequity in practitioners, currently less than 6% of all practicing physicians are Hispanic, less than 5% are African American. So this gives us a unique undergraduate population to help to meet some of those needs and really provide some more equity and address that disparity. We're also in a unique position because of partnerships such as with Banner Health to really provide experiences not just locally in a larger town, but also in some of the rural facilities such as Sterling out in Wyoming, in Western Nebraska. And that's really going to help in creating that rural tie for our students. If you know what it's like to practice in a town of 3,000, you're more likely to try that. You're not going to just jump into that if you're from Denver and have never seen any hospital practice other than, University of Denver Medical Center, right? So we were talking about hiring plans and budgets. We have a strong operational budget. We looked at our pro forma. The good thing is we will break even operationally with our third class of students. But before then, we do need to have some funding for operations, also funding for an escrow program. And that's something that is required by our accreditors because accreditation starts now as we're in applicant status and candidate and pre-accreditation status. But you are not fully accredited as a medical school until the spring before you graduate your first class. The accreditors want to make sure that you do everything you say you're going to do, that you walk the walk. So they will come and visit us in March or April. We will get our accreditation and graduate our first class in May of that 4-year program. So you have an escrow fund in case you don't happen to meet all of those requirements. So you can pay back all of that tuition, fees, and expenses for those students so they don't suffer from having pursued, other than time, they don't suffer from having pursued a degree and not having that degree. Now, the great thing is in the history of having escrow, no one has ever forfeited their escrow. When a medical school doesn't start, it's typically before they enroll their first class. Things happen with either recruitment or fundraising or other that school doesn't take off. The other really neat thing about this is we're going to be part of a public institution. If you look at osteopathic medicine, only 8 existing schools are at public universities. The rest of the osteopathic schools are freestanding, either for-profit or not-profit, but they're not part of a public university. So being the 9th public school provides us with a wonderful opportunity to create a unique program. We can leverage the other programs in the school from business and communications to the School of Nursing and really create a wonderful and robust curriculum for our students. So a little bit on hiring plans and the impact for our community. Not only are we going to be providing additional physicians and opportunities for the School of Nursing to grow and evolve, looking at space needs for the school, and also how do we work with our affiliation agreements to be able to expand the nursing program as well. We're going to be hiring about 60 FTE employees, 60 full-time employees and faculty coming into the community here. We're going to have, once we're at full capacity, 162 medical students a year for a 4-year program. Now you're talking 25 to 30-year-olds who have families, many of them. Older group of students who are also going to be looking to contribute to the community and be part of the community here in Greeley. And it's going to have an impact on the university as well. We already are hearing a buzz from students applying, saying, I hear you're having a medical school coming. What are you going to do? Are we going to be able to apply to the medical school? Can we, if we come to University of Northern Colorado, do we get into the medical school? How does that work? We've had the opportunity to meet with our undergraduate pre-medical students. I actually brought Dr. Lyons, who is one of our cardiothoracic surgeons at Banner, over, and we did a suture lab for 20 of the students in the one of our undergrad pre-med programs. It was amazing. It also created connections now where they can go and shadow in surgery or shadow in other sites at Banner to see what medicine really is like and do that. Is that something they want to be doing? So I think this is a great opportunity to create an amazing medical school at a wonderful university, and we are going to really create a unique program that's going to address the needs of the community and the state. And I'm very excited. Yes, and Andy might want to stay up for questions too. I don't know.
You were talking about the school of nursing, but we certainly have many more students who want to be in nursing than are able to be. How specifically, how would that happen?
And could you repeat the question so Marlon at least can get it on?
Absolutely. The question was, how can we leverage the start of an osteopathic medical school to help increase the capacity for our School of Nursing? And I've been meeting with Dr. Henry, who's the director of the School of Nursing, on a biweekly basis to look at some of these things. There are a couple of factors that come into play. One is space needs. They're really restricted in their current space. So what do we need in the new building, or what do we look at as we leverage things to allow them to have extra space or shared spaces that they can flow into for simulation and other things? The other is rotations in faculty. Now, I can't really help them with the nursing faculty, but as we're looking at our rotations, and we're expanding because we won't just be in Greeley. I think about 80 of our students out of the 160 will be in the Front Range. The other 80 will be at satellite sites for their core rotations in their third and fourth year. We can look at those hospital systems and those groups and say, do you have capacity for nursing students, and create those dual appointments and dual affiliation agreements. So maybe we leverage some space in Grand Junction where the nursing students weren't going, or we leverage some other space down in Pueblo or somewhere else in the state.
The other thing we've been discussing and even talking to the governor's office is additional resources to expand our simulation labs. It wouldn't just be used by our osteopathic medical students, but could be used by our nursing students as well as practitioners who might need continuing education courses in simulation space. And the simulation space nowadays is pretty amazing. You know, Beth and I have traveled the country looking at other osteopathic medical colleges, and the simulation space looks like an inpatient or outpatient doctor's office or hospital floor. And in those rooms are mannequins that are actually very sophisticated robots. They speak, they move, and it's pretty impressive, the technologies. And then on top of that, there's virtual reality, augmented reality, visualizations of the human body where students can actually walk through and manipulate parts of the body and learn, you know, skeletal identification, etc. So that kind of space is very expensive, and for our nursing program to expand, it isn't just about, as Beth said, just the faculty. It's also about having the sophisticated equipment to make sure that students are coming out of the programs with state-of-the-art educational experiences.
I think that's important. My wife retired after 50 years as an operating nurse. And her biggest complaint was the students coming out of nursing school were not prepared to move into the operating room. They didn't get that training in college. They were busy getting their VAs and getting other kinds of, you know, most of them were coming out to be supervisors and not actually functioning in the operating room, and other specialties as well.
And that's one of the things we'd like to really address. One of the things that I'd love to see is we're an interprofessional educational center of excellence. That's where we can bring the doctoral students, the nursing students, our applied physiology, exercise physiology students together, maybe even students from AIMS that are EMTs, into these training sessions where you learn how that team interacts to take the best care of your patient, be it in the OR, in an emergency room, on a floor, and you really can work with that together. And we're looking at how do we make a longitudinal curriculum that combines the nursing students and the medical students and some other of our adjunct health professionals into those settings. So you graduate ready to go. So you graduate able to do that. So you learn how would you function in an operating room. And I'm excited by that. And I actually have a couple of cohorts on the nursing team that have already said, I'm your person, I'm on your curriculum committee, we can do that. So
Tom, I think was.
My question is there anything that Rotary and looking for projects for us to do, visual Rotary or a combination of Rotary, is there a place for us to fit in a partnership with the plant? Maybe that's a question you can think about and come back and say, gee,
Well,
maybe this
Tom, where my mind's going to go. It's really well, it's give or get, Tom. So no, the truth is that our biggest hurdle right now is, you know, Beth has been working across the state on clinical placements. A big challenge in getting these medical colleges off the ground is making sure that students in their third and fourth year have access to these clinical experiences where they work alongside doctors for basically half of their educational experience. And so that's a big part of it. But where I'm focusing on right now is raising the money to build the academic facility. You heard Beth talk about securing money for the escrow account, and then also operational needs. We have about a $22 million operational need until we get to the third cohort of students will be breaking even. The program is actually going to generate resources. It's going to generate revenue that we'll be reinvesting back in our pre-med programs, our biology and chemistry programs, and our allied health programs and nursing. So that's exciting. But to get there, our biggest push right now is going to be on fundraising, getting the resources necessary to make this happen. And we're working with the county, the city, philanthropic organizations, foundations, corporate entities. And so it's kind of all hands on deck for us about identifying those resources. And I'd love to hear from you. It's not maybe that I'm asking Rotarians for money directly, but maybe it's just getting us in touch with people that could help us, envision this program here at UNC.
My thought is just, if there's a program or something that we can identify that is alongside some of the major efforts to do a project for Rotary and philanthropy and trying to help the community provide medical service.
Absolutely. And I think there will be opportunities both now and once we start having our students, because we will definitely be looking for opportunities for them to go out and provide health screening programs, other efforts out in the community. And also in Chicago, we had a medical student Rotarian chapter. So that may be something that they would like to do. One of our medical students who was a Rotarian in undergraduate decided that she wanted to start that. And we actually started a Rotary chapter for our medical students. So that would definitely be something we would be tapping into you, because I think that would be of interest. People go into medicine because they want to help people. I don't want to have any of my students come into the medical school that doesn't say that in their interview. I want to hear that at least once, because really, it's a lot of work to become a physician. It's a lot of work to see patients. You have to do it because you love it and you want to help people. Otherwise, you're not going to be happy. You will suffer burnout. So, it's a group that's really poised to want to do something with the Rotary and to do outreach.
Question right there in the email.
Yeah, two-parter, I guess. Can you revisit real quickly some of the primary drivers behind the shortage? I know you said kind of attrition due to folks aging out, and then also sheer population growth. So if you could revisit those, and then also give us what's the typical bio of an instructor at an osteopathic school?
Okay, so if you're looking at why are we running short on physicians at this point, a lot of it is aging and population growth. We had the baby boomers who are now getting into that age where they're 60, 65, and they're a higher utilization group for medical care. I mean, let's face it, as we get older, we need to see a doctor more frequently. Then you also have the aging physician population. So we are seeing an expanded growth of medical schools to meet this need. One of the other things that we need to do is develop graduate medical education or those residency programs. When you go through medical school and graduate after 4 years, you're not able to see patients independently yet. You need to still do a residency program, which can be 3 years for many of the primary care, up to 7 if you're going to be a nurse. So you still have that amount of training where you're directly under supervision of the experts in those specialties. So we need to build some more of those programs across the state as well. So that's one of the other things we're looking at with our faculty. The other, the shortage too is there has been some attrition and earlier retirement of physicians than we used to see. People will say that's anything from the corporatization of medicine where you don't own your own practice, and now some of the physicians who were very used to that feel like they're up to them and they don't feel that they're getting that patient interaction in that business sense. I don't think we'll see that continue because there's a new generation of physicians comes into this model and tries to build within that model. I don't think we'll see that displeasure that we see. But that's where we're starting to see these shortages. So we need to step up and meet the shortages. When you're talking about what's the typical profile of a faculty member at a medical school, it varies. We have physicians who are members, and they can be full-time members where they've no longer seen patients or practicing, or a variety. We'll see physicians who are in full practice and they give us 1 day a week, or they come in and grade OSCEs, which is where our patients, our students see standardized patients, which are actors who know how to act like a patient, and they'll grade those encounters and provide feedback. We also use our preceptors in the community to train our students in their office, in their practice. Then we'll also have the biomedical science faculty who are either researchers or excellent teachers in pharmacology, in immunology, and anatomy. And that's the other group of faculty that you'll typically see in a medical school. We'll also have learning specialists who know how to teach students how to learn, can identify their weaknesses in test taking, other skills. We're going to need at least 3 of those individuals for our medical school when we're fully staffed to help support our students, as well as mental health counseling.
Just add, I had lunch with Marilyn Schock yesterday, who's the CEO of PC Health, and we're meeting again today with Margaret Karsten. And just to add what Beth said, I mean, burnout has been real over the pandemic and coming out of it. A lot of retirements, a lot of people, whether nurses or doctors, is tired. And then, of course, UC Health is expanding their number of beds, and so they have needs beyond just people moving into different jobs. But there's just the expansion of our medical system here in Northern Colorado is significant. I think you had a question next, and then there's one over there. Yes.
I was just curious, what are you anticipating the expected costs for an in-state student to attend the college?
$55,000 a year, which is very competitive. It's right in line with other osteopathic medical colleges throughout the country. And so I think that's the appropriate pricing. The newest, I think, medical colleges have opened up right in that.
Right in that range or a little higher, actually.
And this program would be how long?
4 years.
What's the nursing program?
Our undergraduate nursing program, is just like if you're in state, yeah, I think the price is about a little under 11,000, between $10,000 and $11,000 a year for in-state students.
Yeah.
So,
Andy, I don't have a question. I just want to say, congrats to you for doing that. I think doing this is just super, obviously for UNC, but also for this community. My hands off to you. Good job.
thanks for saying it. It's a win-win. It's great. Oh, thank you. This is great for our community. It's certainly great for the healthcare community. It's going to be great for Greeley. I mean, this is going to, certainly have a huge economic impact in Greeley and Weld County for that matter. It's great for UNC because it's not just going to, expand medical education. This is going to have a significant positive impact, not only on our pre-med programs, but the whole university. This is a big deal for us. I don't know where to go. Lots of hands up.
Excuse the ignorance, but what's the difference in curriculum between a DO school and a medical school? Sorry.
And the difference is more, when you look at osteopathic manual medicine and the tenets of osteopathic medicine, that's integrated into the curriculum where you don't have that in an MD school. So we'll have courses during the whole first 2 years and then integrated into their rotations where our students will practice manual medicine. AT still started that in this country. And if you look at osteopathic physicians in London, one of his students broke off and decided that we should only be doing manual medicine. So the London degree is all manipulative medicine with no prescriptions and no surgery, where the DO degree is pretty much everything an MD does, plus the integration of osteopathic philosophy across the board. It's a very holistic approach. And then the manual medicine. Now, we're seeing a kind of convergence between MDs and DOs, where MDs are now talking about patient-centered care and the holistic approach, and that's becoming more normative, but the DOs have been doing that since 1874.
I'm just kind of, I know that there are like federal loan forgiveness programs for serving nonprofits in underserved areas, but are there other incentives, either through the school to keep people in the parts of the community that are seeing the medical care?
I don't think it does. Now, there are incentives. There's also a current loan buyback where if you are practicing at a nonprofit institution, not even in necessarily an underserved area, and you pay your loans on time for 10 years at a percentage that's of your discretionary income, the rest can be forgiven, which is nice. A lot of the communities that I've seen that are really recruiting physicians will pay towards opening a practice for a physician. There's also the armed forces will pay tuition plus a stipend to anyone who is planning to then go into the Army or Navy or Air Force for 5 years upon graduation.
I would ask all our guest speakers and more of this satellite program. What are the passions? What passions do you have as far as nonprofits or other philanthropic nature that aren't part of your daily work and life, like stuff that you don't do for an occupation? What are those things that are near and dear to your heart? Any causes that are particular?
For me, probably National Endowment of the Arts and other things. I was a music major before I went to medical school. So I like early music societies, other things like that, and National Endowment for the Arts. I actually play recorder and I'm part of the American Recorder Society, so that we can actually get out there and meet chapters and play music with other people.
I think, for me, I'm so focused on the university and our students. A lot of what I'm doing is still tied to our student experience. Next week, I have all of our emancipated foster youth over for Thanksgiving dinner as an example. I love being around the students, so having opportunities to engage with them and support their successes is something that I'm probably most proud of focusing on. Thank you.